Okay, we are recording. Ruben just did 20 push-ups in the hallway to make sure he looked all pumped before he did this. So look, before we get into the real estate stuff, this ring, like I'm wearing it to pick up my just sleep recovery. I generally don't wear it all day. Yeah. And I can't wear it during workouts because it'll break. Yeah. But you're wearing this for this. Are you checking the data? Because I feel knowing you're like wearing it and then not even looking at the data.
I only use it.
Don't be scared of the mic.
I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm only using it for sleep as well. It actually created problems though.
Why?
Because I don't get much REM sleep or deep sleep.
Yeah, so I don't get. How much deep sleep do you get?
I'll be lucky if I get like 10% of my sleep is deep sleep and 10% REM. So I'm probably getting like maybe at best like 20, 30 minutes a night on either.
You're only getting 20 minutes. That's not even, I think an hour. Yeah. You're supposed to get, I think, what is it? 15 or 20% of a deep sleep. And I think for me, that has to be like whatever, over an hour, like it's an hour and a half is what the app tells me. Here, I'll tell you right now.
I know. I've always been jealous. You've told me this already.
No, but I never get a lot of deep sleep.
No.
But my HR recovery.
I don't measure recovery.
You don't measure your recovery?
No.
So you don't measure your HRV in the morning?
No. I don't even know what that is.
Really?
Yeah.
No, so sleep. So yeah, last night was bad for me. I got 41 minutes, which is 8%. So yeah, you're supposed to get an hour to an hour and a half. So I don't get a ton of deep sleep. It's Nick who gets a ton of deep sleep.
I think Mike does too.
And Mike does great on the recovery.
Not me.
So, okay. And then HRV, what are you watching for? You don't look at your HRV at all?
Like I'll tell you.
What's your HRV right now? Hit on readiness on the app and then look at your heart rate variability.
I don't even know where to do that.
At the bottom where it says readiness.
Okay. Done. It says 75.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. Dude, you know what mine says?
What?
19. 19.
Is that good?
No, not that readiness. Here, give me this. Give me this. Readiness. Yeah, 46. That's actually really good.
All right, I'm better than you.
I think it's a relative score. Yeah, that's all you care about. I'm better than you.
I win.
Yeah. It's a relative score, so I don't think it actually matters. Here, I don't think it matters really how high. Like, I think it's more relative to your last week. How are you doing, as opposed to kind of like how high your absolute score is. So if you're 46 all the time, Nick, can you pull that closed? Oh, thanks. Okay, the real estate stuff.
Yes.
So what I wanted you to share with everyone, because I think you have really good insights into this stuff. I don't think, what market do you consider yourselves playing in right now? Because I used to kind of like pigeonhole you a little bit, but now I see what you're doing and you're like all over freaking Golden Horseshoe, Toronto. So how do you look at yourself? What's your specialty?
So I think it's. I look at the people that I've been working with, and a lot of our business is repeat business, right? Or referrals. So we had a lot of clients that were coming to us that were looking to build custom homes, luxury properties, whether it was something that they were doing for an investment or whether it was going to be for their primary. A lot of those clients have accomplished that already, and now are looking elsewhere for other investments in real estate. So we've been helping them finding whether it's going to be single family homes for rentals or whether it's going to be like a legal duplex, or helping them find something and doing conversion. So it really comes down to the customer's needs, and we're super flexible. So yeah, you are seeing that we're being a bit more diverse than we were in the past.
And is it a type of home that you're working on, or just whatever the customer needs? Because now you're doing investment properties in Hamilton, but you're doing luxury homes, I feel like, all over the place, from Mississauga, Oakville, Burlington.
Yeah, that's right. So we still have like in Mississauga, a really nice modern luxury development project where there's like 8 luxury homes. They're going to be all around $6 million, to where it's going to be in some clients picking up some single family homes in Hamilton that are converting them into legal duplexes. So like I said, it's from a geography standpoint and also the type of property, it's pretty vast.
So then I guess what I wanted to ask you, with everything that we see in the real, Nick's just joining us here. Nick's going to join us for a little bit, because then our father needs some help that he's going to help him out with.
Yeah, last minute. I just couldn't give it up. I saw you guys talking. I'm like, I want to come chat with these guys.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we were just talking about his HRV actually before we got into the real estate. His HRV that he doesn't look at is 40. I told him, hey, look at the ring I'm wearing. Yeah. And he's like, I'm wearing the same ring. So we have these Aura.
That's what he said. He goes, you know how much technology is in this? And I had to do this.
Yeah. And you know what he said? He goes, I told you about the ring. And I'm like, you definitely did not tell me about the ring. If anything, I told you about the ring. You didn't tell me about the ring. So listen, his HRV score is 46. His deep sleep my deep sleep's not the best. I usually will get an hour. I got 46 minutes last night. I'll get an hour and 20 minutes sometimes, but he gets like 20 minutes, he's saying. But you always do really good on deep sleep.
Oh,
I get usually about 20%. Yeah, mine's
Yeah.
yeah.
So
Last
that's
night,
90 minutes or so.
yeah, last night was an hour and 47, so it's 26%.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
So jealous.
But my REM was lower. My REM was 20%.
But the deep sleep is your muscle recovery and like really restorative sleep. To me, I think it's more important than the REM.
Yeah.
I used to just focus on the REM, but I feel really great when I have a lot of deep sleep.
I was at the soccer game yesterday, and I was drinking beer, which I don't normally drink. Maybe that's the secret.
Was that outdoors?
Yeah, it was outdoors.
Wasn't it freezing?
No, it wasn't, because you know what? We were in the sun, and it wasn't anyways.
I don't like the cold.
But and then your
But
HRV.
you were in Ottawa,
I was.
and it was freezing in Ottawa. I was like,
It was.
yeah.
But I literally had the whole gear. Like, you think I was a snowmobiler, like everything from the gloves to the, like, I was cozy. My feet went numb though.
Hey, I'm curious. Your HRV score. What is it on average?
So
like
the
you would
new
think
ring,
we're with brothers, it'd be similar, but we're so different.
the
Like,
new
mine's
ring
super
is
low.
measuring it lower. So versus the Whoop. So when I was wearing a Whoop, it was in mid 50s, I think. It was 50s, and then I would go into the 60s. But the ring measures it differently. So the ring for me has been measuring it at mid 30s and something, I think. I have it here. Yeah, see, last night it was only 29, but usually it's about 30, low 30s.
Mm-hmm.
When I get to mid 30s, it says I'm okay. Actually, see, HRV balance, it says good. So what I've learned about the ring is the ring will measure it based off, and maybe Whoop does this now as well. It measures it based off like your last couple
it's like a
weeks or
relative
couple
score.
months. Yeah. So at least it does it that way. So it doesn't make it like, it doesn't.
Because the Whoop band was telling me I was never recovered because my HRV was just so low. It was just doing an absolute number every day, but I think they probably have changed
I'm
that
sure
as well.
they've probably updated that, I would imagine. I don't know.
Yeah, got it. Okay. So what I want to talk to you about on the real estate front is in the higher end properties, what are you seeing? So let's focus in on a price point of 2.5 to 3.5 million. So higher priced real
So like
estate.
a townhouse.
Yeah. A cardboard box at the side of the road, $2.5 million in Canada. So what are you seeing? How fast are prices moving in the last few months? So we're recording this right at the end of January, literally the last day of January. What have you been seeing the last 3 or 4 months in price movements on that price, 2.5 to 3.5 million?
Yeah, so there's been movement across the board. What I see happening though is more on the land that people are acquiring to do the build. That's where we're seeing like immediate, like huge fluctuations in price. Where I would say 6 months ago, something that you would have bought, let's say in Oakville, in Southwest Oakville, that would have been a 60 by 120 lot, you would have been able to get
with a house on it already that you're just going to bulldoze down?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So we had a client that actually bought like a premium lot because it was 60 by 140, where the average is 120 feet deep. And at the time, we set a precedent. We bought it for like 1.4 million.
Okay, South Oakville somewhere.
Yeah, South Oakville, within walking distance to like downtown Oakville.
Okay.
That property today, again, this was purchased like I think like 3 months ago. That property today is almost close to 1.8 million. So the land is appreciated. What is that? Almost like $100,000 per month if you were to average it out. That's absurd.
And then on that, so they bought it. Remind me how much they bought it for?
1.4, just over 1.4.
So they bought it for 1.4, and now the building cost to build what are they going to put on that? 3,000 square feet, 4,000 square feet?
Yeah. So normally on a 60 by 120 lot, you get around just over 3,000. But this being a premium lot and a bit deeper, they're probably going to get somewhere around like 3,400 square feet.
So give me what's the building cost currently?
Yeah, and this is such a loaded question. People always ask me the building cost, and it really, you have to have an image in your mind of what you consider as a custom build. But I would tell you, I cannot see anybody building for anything less than $350 a square foot, and that's still pretty basic. When they start going to more high-end luxury finishes, everything from better quality windows, staircases, and extensive use of millwork, you're really looking at around the $450 mark. And then when you start seeing some of more the high-end luxury stuff, the stuff that you would see, whether it be in Southeast Oakville properties that are like reselling for, $5.5 million, $6 million, and new construction, those houses literally starting at 600 a square foot, right?
So they're buying the land for 1.4. They're going to build for about 1.5 or so. I'm ballparking 1.5 at 3,200 square feet times $450.
Yeah.
So this is going to be all done at 3,200 feet for $3 million.
A little bit more. I would say about 3,132.
Landscaping.
Yeah.
Do you include any landscaping in that cost that you just told me?
There's minimal landscaping. You mean you're having obviously your grading and your sodding and everything like that.
And we all know you could easily spend $200,000 to $400,000 on a house like that.
Exactly.
So Okay, so then you have this house that's going to be $3.5 to $4 million, and that's purchased 6 months ago. So if they were to flip this and sell this in a year or year and a half when this thing's done, this thing's not going to be listed for like $3.5 million.
No.
What would you guess it's going to be listed for?
It would have to be over $4 million. And again, you're still factoring it based on the price they purchased it for. Today, that same lot is now like 1.7 to 1.8 million. Right?
So when they go to sell it in a year and a half, they're going to take that land value into account and the current build cost, I would assume. Is that how do you do the mental calculations, the mental math on that?
Yeah. So again, you're going to look at what is your competition, what recently sold. That's going to play a huge factor in it. If somebody is now, if there's nothing listed and there isn't any comparables, yes, that would be the calculation. What is the land value? What's the cost of construction to build it? So what's the replacement value of the exact same house? And then plus or minus, right? So that would be, but normally there's enough comparables, and that's what you're going to really be competing against, and you have to be priced according to that.
So
right?
I think the reason I'm asking is like we have these leading indicators that what Ruben's just saying that's telling us the property prices are going to go higher. Like I know so much is involved here because if interest rates change and the economy changes, that can pull down the real estate market. But assuming status quo, if these are the input costs today and that property is not going to be out on the market for a year and a half, we're going to see higher prices from even what we see now.
Yeah, but we've had times in the past where that doesn't happen because the economy.
No, I'm just
changes or
saying,
something.
assume it just like just assume everything's the same. Like,
Well, look, we know a builder that, and I was telling you about this, that had to go out to the people that bought properties, and they went out and asked for an extra $50,000 because of I don't know like the legal language that they use, but you know when it's like extreme circumstances, pre-construction subdivision, they had to go out and ask. I don't know if it was each person was $50,000, average $50,000, but they asked each buyer for more money because of just material cost had elevated so much. They're like, look, to make it work, they kind of had to, and I guess they were within their rights. I don't know how all the contracts work. And at the time when I was speaking to when I was learning about this, they said about 50% of people had signed off on those. Right, with the buyers. And that's because they had so much, they had a bunch of equity in the property. So I guess they were okay with it if they were able to afford it. But yeah, costs had gone up so much. And you see the land, to your point, land costs. And there's not less red tape now. There's more red tape, more municipality stuff, more development charges. Like everything's more. So yeah, barring something, you know, if the economy slows right down, interest rates spike up or whatever, yeah, that'll change things. But outside of that, I don't know.
And then again, what's going to dictate it is the amount of activity, right, in those price points. There wasn't a lot of activity at 3 million, 4 million, but we were talking about this earlier. So Friendbrook, just your typical builder within a subdivision, they have a nice product, but it's still a subdivision type product.
Okay, I live in a Fernbrook home. Okay, thank you. So that's
well, it's not a custom home; it's a subdivision home, right?
I mean, I'm sure they have their custom home division, but we're talking
just
subdivision.
laughing at the property that I live in. That's fine.
No, not at all.
Keep digging. Yeah.
But here is a new subdivision out in Oakville, north of the QEW, and they just released their latest price list. And you're looking at houses that are just over 3,000 square feet that are $3 million. This is builder pricing. And you got to remember.
No upgrades.
Well, there'll be minimal upgrades.
Is that starting at $3 million?
Starting at $3 million.
Really?
Yes.
How big is the house?
Like 3,300 square feet.
And I guess on what?
On a 46-foot lot.
Yeah, because they're not even doing 50.
How are they fitting that on a 46-foot lot?
There's no backyard.
Are tiny.
You don't have a backyard.
Backyards are the size of this office.
Yeah, so you wouldn't even, like, to put a pool back there, your whole backyard would be all pool. And think
so
about
can you fit a pool?
You would, but then you wouldn't have a backyard.
Yeah, and they're usually a little bit narrower,
and
there's not as much patio.
Yeah, so
some of the newer subdivisions, when I've seen the backyards, I was like, wow, that's because they're really putting. But more people care about the size of their home than they care about their lot, I think.
They do, but when the houses get bigger and the lots are smaller, and then you're not backing on a ravine, you are now like back to back with another house. And imagine paying $3 million. And people, what they don't understand is they're going through the model home and they're seeing all these great upgrades, and then they're seeing custom homes that are going at like $3 million. But the house that you're buying from the builder does not have a finished basement, doesn't have fencing, doesn't have blinds, doesn't have like sometimes even air conditioning, landscaping. So if they're in at $3 million, by the time they do some simple upgrades through pot lights and cabinetry through the builder, there'll probably be another $100,000 to $150,000 in upgrades. Then they're going to go in and do their own finishes on some landscaping and
window coverings.
Window coverings. They're going to be in at least $3.3 million and be backing on directly to another house. which is, when I think about that, it's craziness, right? But it is where we are right now, right?
I'm just thinking about, you're going to spend $300,000 in upgrades just on pot lights. Mm-hmm. When I went to the builder and they told me the cost for pot lights, I'm in a heart attack. I'm like, what? That's the cost for your pot lights? I'm like, how about I get my electrician to come in there while you guys are doing construction, and I'll save myself, I don't know, 10 grand. Like,
so one of the things that we do for some clients who that we have relationships with, we offer a consulting engagement, and they'll buy from a builder, because in some cases it still may make sense, but we'll actually show up at the decor appointment and we'll coach them, because like literally you could be at the decor and people are spending.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Oh, they hate it. I think because like we'll look at the cost to upgrade the flooring. It's actually cheaper to close on the property, bring a contractor in, rip all their existing flooring, and put new flooring in and better quality flooring.
Yeah, but if you can book a contractor right now.
Well, fortunately, we have contacts that way,
Okay.
right? So we have people that work exclusively with us that they're there for our clients, so it works out well. But even the same thing when it comes to pot lights. We'll strategically figure out where in a room to put one pot light, so that at least we have the light switch.
So you have the wire, and you have the wiring.
And then we know where the joists are, so that we can then run them. So instead of paying like $350 a light, we're paying like $75 a light. When you start talking like 100 lights, talking thousands of dollars, right? Yeah, for sure.
And then so what, finished basements from the builder you'll never suggest?
Never suggest, unless there's some sort of package and promo that it makes, but normally no.
What about higher basement ceilings? You'll suggest that, I guess.
It depends. If it's already coming with a standard like 8 or 9 foot ceiling, and it also depends on the value of the house. So what you think the resale value is going to be. But if I'm paying $3 million for a house, yeah, I want 9 foot ceilings in my basement.
Got it.
Right.
And so then you said some of your clients, it's appropriate for them to buy that subdivision home. Why are you saying that?
Yeah. So again, if a lot of I'll give you an example. There was a client that was looking to do like a modern house, right? They wanted to buy, but they didn't have the time and the resources and the money to build from scratch. So they were looking for houses that they could reno. And based on how competitive the reno market was, like the resale market was for everybody chasing these fixer-uppers, the builder at the time had offered a subdivision, and there was a particular house that the price still made sense that we could buy this house and
make it look modern.
But again, not through using the builder's upgrades, but bringing in our own trades after. So the day that they closed, they didn't move in. They ripped out their kitchen, brand new house, ripped out their kitchen, ripped out washrooms, ripped out laundry rooms, and brought in the contractors in. And within, I think it was like a 2.5 month period, completely transformed the house. The front of the elevation, the house was already a bit more modern. And I remember they bought that house for like $1.6 million. They probably spent like $250,000 in rentals, which they would have easily spent through the builder on upgrades. Today, that house is worth like $3 million. And that was literally within about a year. So
is that like a modern day flip? You know how before we were looking at flips of buy the beat down house, fix it up. Is this like a new kind of way to do a modern day flip where you're buying from the builder and doing like weird things too? Because now it's not comparable to any other homes in the subdivision when you go to sell it.
Correct. And again, these guys were not doing it for a flip.
No, I know they were.
So they were trying to figure out what's their total cost of ownership in being one of these houses, and the house being their dream home. So when they did this, we weren't thinking, oh, what's the resale value going to be? Markets moved. We did a phenomenal job. And all of a sudden, their closest competition now is literally, going to be $3 million, where they're probably all in for like maybe, I would say, like 1.9, right? So,
are you seeing a sweet spot for people to flip right now? Like, can you flip home? Is there a price point sweet spot?
Yeah. So the answer is yes, there is. And what's going to dictate it is there's like a formula. We always look within that neighborhood, within that, and seeing that there's a big enough gap, right, between what a similar house is selling for to like at a starting point to end point. You figure a renovation, if you're doing something half decent, it's anywhere from $150,000 to $200,000. So you want to see a gap at least $500,000, $500,000 from where the starter price house is to where the most expensive house is. And you want to have some similarities in square footage. So, but that's very difficult to find because there's more people chasing the lower end of the market, driving that price up. So it's very rare to find something that's worth flipping.
Can you move up and do it at a higher price point?
You can, but the same kind of rules apply. So where we're seeing anybody who bought something with the intentions of flipping, the way the market's moving, they're not even doing the renovation. By the time they buy it and by the time they close on it, it's already gone up, and they're already calculating, hey, if I were to renovate, what could I potentially sell and make? And they would make the exact same amount of money today by doing nothing, like literally just selling it. So we do buy things.
So people are just flipping the lots now because they're going up so fast.
Yeah, but we don't. When we're buying the property, we make sure that it's not that there's speculation. Oh, that the lot value is going to go up. We already understand if we're buying it, for example, let's say 1.1 million, and we've figured out what the rental is going to cost. Let's say the rental is 2. We want to make sure that house is going to sell at a minimum, like 1.6 to 1.7, right? So, but what ends up happening is by the time we buy it at 1.1, and by the time we close, it's already like 1.3, 1.35, right? So at that point, we're going to make the same amount of money just flipping the lot rather than doing the...
And it saves you a year. They're pulling up the profits by a year. And a lot of headaches.
Yeah, and I think what would happen...
Thing is, they got to put that money back into the market because now you've sold that thing. If they did do the flip, you're probably going to make more money than you anticipated, assuming, Nick, to your point, the market doesn't change.
Well, yeah, I was thinking the only problem with those types of strategies, when it happens, it's great. But if you're going in expecting to do that, is when it becomes challenging, because that's how our family got into a really, really bad situation. So, it's not if the market turns, the market's going to turn. Right? When and what's going to trigger it. And maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years, maybe it's 2 months. Like, no one knows. But that's then, it's like who's caught holding the bag in that type of scenario where it's not spinning off income and you have those resources that you're holding on to. Now, if they're buying it because they're going to build for themselves or whatever, and building it's a little bit different than just renovating it, or people that are buying, to resell in 6 or 12 months without really doing any work and thinking, well, this is great, it's just going to go up and then I'll just kind of like offload it, right? So it's just a little bit different that way. I think just to clarify that, because it's a little bit, some people think that there's different segments of the market, and some people get in just looking for easy money on pure speculation stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just wondering. Oh, our father's here. He's already pissed off.
Yeah.
That Nick's
pointing at his watch. Pointing at his watch. I have 2 minutes. No, according to my watch, I have 2 minutes.
Yeah, for those of no one listening knows our father. He has zero patience. Okay, so then I guess to Nick's point, like it's dangerous to go in anticipating that you're just going to make money flipping a lot. But then if I was just to think this through, I'm like, oh, geez, but are we living in a world where like this does just continue because we all assume that it can't? You know what I mean? Because we all assume like, okay, this is crazy. It can't. It's going to change. Then I'm like, oh my gosh. We can never be on the side of the majority. So if the minority opinion is that this is just going to continue, we're all screwed. It's going to continue.
Well, look,
and you can't bank on that, because you're right. You could lose everything if you banked on that going in.
Yeah, and again, I want to clarify. When we are making the decision to move forward on the purchase, we're not banking on any appreciation. We're figuring in today's market, like again, I'm going to give because I'm more of a numbers guy. So if you're buying something like we did at 1.1, we're knowing that in today's market, we spend 2, we're selling it for 1.6. But by the time we close, so what would you make gross? There's about $300,000. But if by the time we close, it is now $1,350,000, right? You've already made $250,000. So you got to reevaluate it. Is it worth the time and energy to spend more money as well to make an extra $50,000? And based on that time, the more time that you're waiting and to go on the market, there's more risk, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen in 6 months or a year from now.
Yeah, I agree. Right. I agree with what you're saying. And you guys were doing it for another reason. And I know that's what's happened with a lot of people who bought land to develop recently, because there's a couple of projects I had invested in. There was 2, I think, one Cambridge and one Oakville. I think they both did this. The Oakville one for sure. But instead of developing, they just said, hey, look, at this point, now instead of developing it, we should just think we're going to sell the land, because by the time we develop it, it's to your exact same point, just on a larger scale. They're just like, why go through this? We've established a good amount of profit. We don't feel like we have to take on the extra risk, the added work. So I think we're going to sell this one to another developer, and we move on to something else.
We're hearing that everywhere. There's a medium-sized developer in Niagara who just did that. They bought land to build on it. They just sold all their land. Yeah. All their land. They just said, forget it. We're out. They made more profit selling their land than they thought they would completing the subdivisions. They're done. Yeah. they're happy, they got money in the bank, and they were going to go develop the land. So now another builder has it. So I don't know if that delays the build by 6 months or a year, or who knows, maybe it doesn't at all. But just the fact that some builders are just stepping back from building. So we're in a situation where we need
it's the work risk and headaches. I mean, and then it's not even when you close on the properties. Then there's all the afterwards, all the touch-ups after going back.
Carry on.
It's a lot. It's a lot of effort. Well, I mean, there's a reason why they have to charge what they charge. Look, the builders are making money, but they're not making it just because prices have gone to where they are. It's not like the builders' margins have now exploded because of this. So
if they can save themselves 3 years and make the same profit, pull up that money now.
I think for the individual investor, all right. See you, Nick. I was going to say,
it was nice the way you guys waved to each other there. Okay, see you later, guys.
For the individual investor who's building, the money's not in the build, right? Because I can go back and can see anybody who built and who made money, but if I look at what they bought the land for, and as subtract what they bought, what they cost. Oh, holy cow! I can't even speak. If I basically take into consideration what they sell it for at the very end, and I subtract the build, that they would have made more money or the same, but more likely more money if they didn't even build, if they just sold the land. And that's because we've been just seeing this massive appreciation. Now, I think on the build side, there is money to be made, but that's always lagging. Right, because it takes a while for somebody to buy the land, to do the build, and then set that new precedent. Right,
and setting that new precedent, if you're one of the first new ones that have come up in this era, you have to go to a price point where no one's gone before.
Exactly.
But once that's set, then it's a snowball effect for the whole few streets around that house.
Exactly. You kind of pave it for everybody else. But if you're going to be the first person to do it, it's going to be a challenge.
I'm just wondering if what I'm hearing means that the price point that you're talking about, which I know is higher. But if it's even going to go yet higher again, assuming we don't get any weird slowdown by government changes this spring, interest rate changes, it's going to be fascinating to see. Yeah. And then, why are you getting pulled out? You're doing some stuff with clients that you normally wouldn't do, or some of your clients are doing investment properties now in different areas. I know you've been in Hamilton a little bit. Where is that coming from? Is that clients who are just typically doing luxury builds who are saying, I also want rental property, or they're just doing flips in different areas?
Yeah, I think it's two reasons. One, sometimes clients will ask, hey, what am I doing personally outside of a build, which I've done in the past? And I do explain that my biggest regret was selling all the houses that we did. If I wish I can go back.
Everybody's biggest regret.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was buying these houses from a subdivision builder, and I was buying them at, going way back when. I remember my first house was like $138,000.
Was that the Mattamy semi-detached Mattamy?
It was a Mattamy semi.
Yeah.
Right from the refinery, the Shell refinery over there in Burloak. That was my first place. So
and it was 130.
You could look out and see the smokestacks and everything. Right?
130,000?
138,000.
For a semi-detached
For a semi-detached house.
138,000.
And
what year was that roughly? Let me guess. Man, that's going to be around the year 2000.
Well, I've been married 28 years, so it was about probably 27 years ago, I think.
Okay, so we're we're 93, 94, 95.
Yeah. So, but when we started kind of moving up from there, we were buying houses from the builder, which were nice homes. The same houses today that you're seeing listed at $3 million. We were buying those at $450.
Yeah, I remember I saw you buying those.
So imagine, when we would sell it, my wife and I, we were high-fiving each other.
You would buy one on a Sunday afternoon. You would go to the trailer from the new home builder and come home and tell Lori.
I would sleep there the night.
Yeah.
Right? And then I would be talking to the people who were in line sleeping in the night, figuring out what lots they were getting. I already knew my neighbor before we even moved in.
This was 2005, 2006.
Yeah, it would have been around then. But again, in hindsight, those houses that we bought for $450 that are now $3 million or close to $3 million, what would our mortgages be on them right now? Even if we refinanced it and kept it at $500,000, right? You'd have $250,000 in equity in each property, and they'd be renting easily. Those houses would rent for almost $5,000 a month, but you'd have a mortgage of maybe $400,000 or $500,000 on a mortgage. So you'd be positive cash flow, maybe $3,000 on each. So just keeping a couple of those. So that changed my whole strategy in terms of...
you had a friend who told you to
keep
some
I think I know a guy.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
I'm not going to give you
credit. I just want to say it wasn't a new idea. You had people around you saying, hey, you should probably get some rentals.
Well, I remember you got me my first rental.
Was that one of the rent-to-owns?
Yeah, it was. It was out in, I think the first one we bought was on Caledon, was the name of the street.
In Hamilton.
In Hamilton.
Yeah, got
Do you remember what you got? I didn't even see it.
Oh my gosh.
I think I was in Vancouver.
Oh, really? I
And
forget.
you called me. It's like, hey, Ruben, there's this property.
You know why? We probably had somebody else walking away from it. We were in a jam.
Oh,
Hey,
yeah?
you want to buy this thing?
And I think what we bought it
If
for.
I had to guess, it was 200 and something.
Yeah, I think it was 230.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you think? He's like, and you're like, I don't know. I look pretty good. And I'm like, so I never saw it. We put an offer on it and we did a rent to own, right? And I sold it. I was foolish.
We all were.
Well,
Nick and I were looking back at some of our rent-to-owns that we did ourselves and with joint venture partners. Some of those rent-to-owns we would sell out, and the profit was $30,000. Now, this is going to sound bad when I say this, but at the time, we thought that was like a home run.
I know.
We were like 30,000. Like, we just made $30,000. We didn't do any renovations. We helped somebody buy a house. They're happy. We're happy. Now looking back on those is like $30,000. The value of that $30,000 is like nothing. Before, $30,000 would have been, over 15% of the entire purchase price of the home.
Yeah.
Now looking back, it just feels like, why didn't we keep all those? But there's a time in your life where we couldn't keep all those. Those income hits to us, even if Nick and I were splitting or splitting it with a joint venture partner and then us splitting, that was meaningful income for us. Like we needed them. I guess what I'm saying is we needed the money.
Yeah. I think I would have done more like properties like that, but because we were focused in other areas and it was bigger price points and the profits were bigger, right? I wasn't really excited if the market moved and went up 10%, and if the property is 200, it's 23,000, and I'm like,
Because you were already playing at the $500,000.
yeah.
mark.
So, but now, think about this: that same property that we bought for 235 today, that property's 900.
Yeah.
So if it moves 10%, it's $90,000.
I just wonder if 10 years from now we'll look at that thinking, well, it's $90,000, not really a big deal, even though now.
Think so.
But the things that we kept, like different rental properties, we were just talking about it today. We have this one specific student rental property. By the way, I just had a flashback to one of our student rentals that I sold at York University with my brother-in-law. I think we sold that thing for $690. Yeah, we bought it for $350.
Yeah,
we sold it for $690, which was great, and it cash flowed from day one. That thing cash flowed like it was 7 bedrooms. We did a beautiful IKEA basement in there, walkout. It was a semi-detached we bought. And we sold it for $690. That thing's probably like 1.2 million, 1.3 million right now. And we thought at $690 we were like doing pretty good on that particular one. I still joke with Mario, my brother-in-law, about we shouldn't have sold that property. But anyway, that's a different story. There's another student rental that we have by McMaster, and this is a running joke because this property is over 100 years old. And Nick and I bought that at $250,000, and it's just about to cross the $1 million mark. Amazing. And for 5 years, we've had this joke internally here at Rockstar saying if a 100-year-old property in Hamilton, Ontario, by McMaster University ever gets to be worth $1 million, we know we've hit the banana republic in the real estate market. Yeah. Because we just couldn't even, when we bought that, you couldn't even fathom that property would be $1 million.
I remember going through that house with you.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, early on. I think there was like, you
still
were
shag carpet. We had shag carpet in that one.
And I was like, man, this is like, I would never, ever buy this.
No, but that property, we've refinanced that property just at least 2 times, I think 3 times. One time to pay for its own basement to increase the revenue on it. Other times to take money out to buy other properties. So that property's been responsible for at least 1, possibly 2 other properties. And now in that property, Nick and I haven't refinanced that thing for ages. There's tons of equity in that property. Yeah. Crazy, no? What's one single property?
I get it, but I think because that happened over so much time,
and
it's still crazy. But if you can go and just look back even 1 year or 2 years, right? I think we were talking about this earlier. I had a client who purchased it was a non-legal duplex, completely renovated up on the Hamilton Mountain. They bought it almost exactly 2 years ago, and they bought it for $580.
Why wasn't it legal? It's not zoned for duplexes in that area, or it wasn't finished properly?
It was finished, and they did a whole renovation, new kitchens, new washrooms. It was beautiful, but they never went through the proper application to do it as a legal duplex. So when we bought it, we brought in our consultant that we work with, who's amazing, and he's like, hey, this has the potential. This is what you need to do. So we put together a quick budget of what it was going to cost to actually submit the permits to convert it to a legal duplex. It cost an extra $25,000 for some of the work that we had to do. So we were all in for $605. So that client who bought it for $605, 2 years later, they're now out in Alberta, and they're basically, hey, we want to kind of sell this property. We're looking to move our investments a bit closer. Can you get it sold for us? We over the weekend, we listed it earlier on the week, holding offers. I better watch that. And we listed it for like $850,000, and it sold for like $1,220,000. That means in less than literally in 2 years.
You're one of those assholes who listed it super low.
I didn't. It wasn't super low, right? And by the way, there's something to be said about this whole, this market right now with multiple offers, whether you're on the buying side or whether you're on the selling side in terms of strategy. So, and there's, it's very crucial in how you're executing as a seller, and then also what you're doing as a buyer. But on the selling side, yeah, we believe the market value for that property would have probably been somewhere in the neighborhood normal, and based on some of the comparables, let's say it was 1-1, right? And you kind of always know worst case, best case, but some sellers do not want to list under market value because they're fearful that, hey, that might send the wrong message. But I think what's really important if you're a seller is you want to have as many offers as possible. You know that 50% of your offers are probably going to be garbage. But what happens is the savvy agent who's representing the buyer is going to register their offer early, but not send it to you. They're going to wait to find out how many offers there are. So even those crappy, the 50% of those crappy offers is still creating a bit of a threat that will influence the top buyer to pay more. So I think that is important to understand when you're trying to figure out how to list in this environment. The more the offer, and also the lower.
If Ontario changed and it wasn't blind bidding like we have it to a more transparent system, do you think that would change at all, where people can see the prices, or do you think just it would still be a shit show just because of the demand that we have out there?
I think that in some cases it would even. It really, again, it's hard to say. I don't think it would change much, because if somebody can see your offer, now they know exactly where they stand, and they would probably even be just more aggressive to win. And it just keeps on going. Where sometimes people, they stop because they're like, I really don't know what the other offer is.
Nobody would have bid that high.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to bid
so
what I was
imagine
thinking.
On that property, for example, it sold for $220. So if the other person that was close to it saw it at $220, they're like, okay, I'm going to go $225. Or I'm going to go and it just keeps on going and going. So it comes to a point by not having visibility into it, right? That people are just like, okay, when's enough, right? But if everybody had visibility, it could just continue to go and go, right?
So this whole idea that the transparent kind of bidding process really wouldn't change things. We used to compete in transparent bidding process sometimes for requests for proposals on different software stuff. And sometimes if it was transparent, it really didn't change too much. You just kind of saw it. I don't know if you guys ever went through that now ever, or if it was always blind. I think it was government stuff that you would see the other bids. So then those people who sold that property, they're going to take their money. I'm just curious, and they're going to invest it somewhere else in Alberta.
Correct.
And I guess they have to, because if they don't take that money and invest it, it's just going to lose value like by the month.
Yeah.
Like if you cashed out, just you use that or anyone who's selling a property, an investment property, and we can use this as by way of example. They collect $1.2 million. They pay off a mortgage of, let's say, $400,000. They get $800,000. If you don't put that into the market, you are losing. And if we're to take the kind of benchmark of like 15% inflation right now going on in the real estate market a year, talking a year, you're losing a 10% on, so 10% is 80,000. You're losing $120,000 of that in purchasing power a year. If you just sit on that for 2 years, you're going to lose $250,000 of purchasing power. So you have to, you're forced to push that money back into the market, whether you want to or not, because you can't save it in cash. So you're either going to stuff it into the stock market, or you're going to stuff it into the real estate market, or you buy a bunch of Rolexes and art. But you got to put it somewhere. Like we're talking huge.
Yeah, and that is their intention. They already identified a property from like a builder who's already creating like legal duplexes. So they're going to be buying it and doing something there. I don't think they would have, because my advice to them was don't sell it. Yeah, you can get 1.2 million, but where are things going to go in the next 5 to 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always, I think it was a term that you coined. It says that you're short-term paranoid, long-term positive. Did that come from you, or did you hear that from somebody
No,
else?
that's just how we've operated all the time.
Yeah.
You're paranoid in the short term, but you're long-term optimistic.
And that's how I've always been, right? And I kind of share that with that kind of strategy with clients, and but yeah, they're literally already identified a house that they're going to be purchasing as a result of the sale of this one. Right?
Why are some of your clients have a bit of cash?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they going into the real estate market if it's not for their own family home and you're working with them?
Yeah. So, and I think that kind of leads to what you were asking earlier that I didn't really answer, was why the sudden shift. And one, just through casual conversations, like I always tell people, yeah, my house could go up $500,000 or $1 million, my primary home, but that does not excite me, where some people get excited. And the reason why I don't get excited is because at the end of the day, if I sell the house, I got to move somewhere else, and it's probably gone up. And if I'm trying to move up in terms of lifestyle, it's probably gone up more than mine has. So where I get excited is all the other properties that I have, my investment properties. When they go up, that is where I get excited, right? So we recently did something. So based on that, one client reaches out. He's like, hey, find us an investment property. So we did, and the numbers were amazing. We got it to him for like $1 million. He's renting it out for $4,500. So 100% financed, and I still think he's positive cash flow, $250 or something like that. So we put that on our social media platform. And I think because we have a pretty good following there, immediately we get a bunch of people reaching out saying, hey, I want one. And then that just kind of snowballed to where we're doing a lot of stuff in that area, which we didn't normally do, right? And so those clients who bought, and even though it was only like 3-4 months ago, they were buying at $850,000, $900,000, and now they're seeing their properties worth $1.1 to $1.2 million. They're like, I want more, right? So it's just like, again, it's just the momentum that we're seeing, yeah.
What are you seeing in regards to inventory across any of the stats that you cover? I know you're really good at monitoring stats for the markets that you play in. What can you comment on just the inventory in the real estate market that you see?
Yeah. So again, there's a couple different areas that we focus on. One of the primary areas is going to be Oakville. And I remember just around the Christmas holidays, I was looking and there was like absolutely no inventory. And the cheapest detached house in all of Oakville, the cheapest detached house that you could find was $1,799,000. Okay. And it was an older house in a more mature neighborhood, but it was nicely updated. But so it's $1.8 million.
It's
but
the cheapest.
That was the cheapest single
fully
house
detached house in Oakville.
at that time, like almost for a period of 4 days, right? It was the cheapest. And that house, so we had a client that we brought through, and that house was holding offers. Take a guess what that house sold for. It was an 1,800 square foot home, right?
No,
on
don't
a 60
tell me
by
over $2 million.
Yeah, higher.
2.2.
Yeah, it was like 2,220,000. I was shocked,
shit.
right? And now, since then, there's been a bit more inventory as we start getting into like the second, third week of January, because most people don't want to be listing during the Christmas holidays. So now, basically, the cheapest detached house you'll see is going to be, it may be listed at 1.3 million or but they're holding
for
offers.
1.7.
So in reality, the cheapest detached house that you would see is going to be now, the average is going to be around 1.6 million, right? There may be an anomaly where you see this tiny little house maybe in a really bad area, and perhaps it goes, for like 1.4, 1.5. But on average, even in the subdivision, like on a 36-foot lot, a 3-bedroom, if it's detached, you're looking around 1.6.
So then in kind of with the same thinking, I guess, in Oakville, South Oakville. So if anyone's not familiar, between the QEW, which is the main highway that rips through here in Lake Ontario, and those older lots there, a lot of people are buying lots and building on them. What are some of the features right now that really make a house stand out? I think in the past you've told me 3-car garage. You've also told me lifestyle, like that people would want like a spa in their home.
Yeah. So
is that still the kind of thing? I feel like the spa is probably a big one in those higher price points. And what I mean by that is steam room, sauna, massage tables.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's people that want that or if it's more the strategic person that's basically saying, hey, how am I going to differentiate my house so that when I put it on the market that I can, maximize on the profit. I think most people, when they're thinking just building custom, they're still thinking more the traditional common areas of the house. It's kitchens, family rooms, and washrooms, and the aesthetic of the front elevation and rear elevation. And then moving more into a mature neighborhood.
So what would you recommend then to make it differentiate a little bit more than usual?
Yeah. So I would always say, like, try to differentiate it using the garage, like add a 3-car garage. The issue now is that land is so expensive and
Can't fit it.
Well, yeah, because you're limited. Like when you're buying whether an infill or whether it be a vacant lot, it's going to be about lot coverage.
What about tandem? Can we do tandem 3-car?
No, that's still going to take up lot coverage.
Oh, got
right?
it.
So
now
you
can't get the permit approved for your design.
No, you probably can get a permit. You're going to go for a variance because a lot of times there's a maximum on how big your garage can be based on that zoning, but you can always ask for a variance. But the issue is that you're taking up lot coverage. So how do you differentiate? So it's no longer, it's like now you got to go up. So now you're adding a lift, right? So that's how you're getting your 3-car garage. And maybe your lift is something that's a little bit more, it's not a simple 4-post lift, but something like integrated into the house. Maybe it's a lift bringing the car down into the basement. Right?
And are people doing that into the basement?
Yeah, I've seen that. I saw a house in Toronto that just set a new precedent. It wasn't even a big house, and it sold for well over any of its comparables, and that's what it has.
Because it had a differentiating factor.
Yeah, so it was a single-car garage where most in that area you'd have a double, but then you would have almost like, because the lots are smaller, but you literally drive the car in and it would drop into the...
And then you could park another one.
Another one on the ramp on the top. So you fit 2 cars, and then normally the car that's downstairs in the basement is more of an exotic, like a collector's or something like that, because they had like a glass wall through the hallway so you can see it. So things like that are creative, not crazy expensive when you think of the cost of construction and when you think of the cost of the land, but it's, even if you're spending an extra $100,000, look, if your build cost is costing you 1.5 to 2 million and your land's costing 1.5 to 2 million, to spend an extra 100,000 on a feature like that could be a winning strategy, right?
So anything else coming to mind? So garages instead of 3-car, just wide or tandem going up or down.
The other thing is outdoor space. So where most people who would literally just build a house now, the like covered areas on the in the rear yard, like whether it be fireplaces or outdoor kitchens. It's really difficult to get a pool now, right? If you try to, you're like any pool company, they're swamped and. There's delay on products.
Because a pool before was a little bit sometimes of a negative because not everybody wanted one. Now it's a positive.
Yeah, now it's a positive, which is crazy because we got one, but you only have it for a couple months out of the year. But
you've always told me it's expensive landscaping.
That's what I said. and a lot of the houses we do are modern, right? So there's a lot of glass across the back. So that area in the back is just as critical. What you see back there is just as critical as your kitchen, right? So yeah.
And it looks nasty out in the middle. When it's covered in snow, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I still have one of the, when we close our pool, it's still one of those kind of tarps that kind of dips into the pool. So,
you don't even have a safety cover?
No, I couldn't put a safety cover because the way of our fence is on one side with the waterfall, they couldn't get the spikes in properly. So anyway, but so you've been doing this now for a long time and you were in software and now you've been you were in software, you and I, so for anyone listening who doesn't know, I was a sales consultant at Oracle and Ruben was a sales manager and I wanted to go into sales and I was really fortunate. I've told multiple people you changed my life because you were, when I said I wanted to go into sales, you were the first sales manager said, hey, I'll take you on my team. Mm-hmm. And that was a really big moment in my life. And I'm just thinking you have 10 years of software experience. I've seen you go through a lot of that, especially when me and you were in those offices talking about real estate while we were in the software office. End of quarter, everyone's freaking out. Mm-hmm. And you were talking about flipping. I was talking about these student rental properties and we were talking about all this. And we were talking about everything other than software. Meanwhile, software was exploding.
Well, the best was, I think there was 13 people on our team and the guys would come into my office and like, hey, I'm looking at these floor plans. Which one should I go with? And so I was like consulting everybody on what they should buy. And I'd always tell them, this is where you want to go above your means. Right? It's not on that car that you're purchasing, but on the real estate. if you feel like this is what you're comfortable with, like, and there's like, oh, a townhouse, I'm like, no, go into the semi. Or if they were comfortable.
So the manager at Oracle told me to do the same thing, and then a month later, it was the 2000. It was the tech bust, and it was your brother was there. A bunch of people got laid off, remember? And where I sat at Oracle, I could look out the window, and for about 3 days, I would see people walk out about 10 minutes apart with boxes because they had cleaned out their desk. This is right after I put the down payment on my first family home, and I went bigger. I did 4-bedroom, 2-car garage. Get this, for $268,000 because I stretched myself.
That was the Mattamy house.
That was a Mattamy house, and I stretched myself because the advice from the manager at that time was like, you work at Oracle, everything's great here. You could just go extend yourself. But that changed my life, that whole era when I got into sales with you and
it changed mine too, because my context of what I wanted to make was completely different because of, again, prior to getting into software, it was my dad and his family business, and I saw that he was probably the most successful person,
which was furniture sales.
Yeah, and he was pretty successful amongst all our other family members.
Independent furniture store.
Yeah, and I realized I don't ever want to own like retail, because it was like 7 days a week. It literally felt like you were living to work, trapped, right? Yeah. And then I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this. And I ended up working for like Cadillac Fairview. I was managing a golf course, like an indoor golf course at the Air Mills Town Center.
It was a mini putt.
It wasn't.
When you say golf course,
did I say golf course?
Yeah, you did. Hey guys, listen. In my past, I used to manage a golf course. Yeah. Listen, if you need any tips on fertilizer, let me tell you what I put down in the mini putt.
And I remember the sacrifices I made because I wanted to get recognized, because my goal back then was the property manager for that mall. I don't know what he was making. Like, actually, I remember I think it was the building superintendent. I think he was making like $75,000. And I'm like, man, I want this guy's job. Man, if I can get this guy's job, I've made it. And then eventually, if I can get becoming a property manager, and I think they were making like 6 figures. But it wasn't until I got into software where I saw people making like hundreds of thousands.
Do you remember those field reps that we would see in Chicago? When I found out one of them was making $400,000 in 1 year.
Yeah.
And they were doing that repeat.
Yeah.
I think that's when your context changes. Yeah. Like I didn't think that was possible. Yeah. Did you?
No. And I'm like, it's not that these guys are, and I'm not taking anything away from them, but it's not that they're working any harder or any smarter.
They were in the right industry at the right time.
Exactly. So, but I think that is what changed my context, so that I wanted more, right? And luckily, because of that industry and the amount of money that we were able to make there, I was able to qualify for mortgages that allowed me to invest in real estate. And I don't know what would happen if we didn't go through that, right?
It was really weird timing, because we were riding the wave of the software industry. And then getting into the real estate industry, which was really about to pump pretty hard for like the next 10, 15 years. So it's kind of fortunate. What do you think then for the rest of your how old are you now? We're the same age right now.
Yeah, I'm turning 50 this year.
Later this year. I just turned 49 years. So we're 1 year apart. But what do you think for the next 10 years? Is it real estate for you for the next
Absolutely.
10 years? Why do you say it so confidently?
You know what? I think, I remember being like 16 years old, just driving down Lakeshore in Oakville and just to look at houses. And I would just drive down and look at houses, and I'd be amazed, and I would always wonder who lives there. What do they do for a living? What does that house look like inside? So I've always loved real estate. I remember at 12, I remember driving by one area like in St. Clair, and it was St. Clair and Runnymede. And I called my dad. I'm like, Dad, there's this house for sale. At 12 years old, you got to buy this house. All right. So there was always this kind of passion as a kid and even growing up. And I think, unlike software, like, I had good work ethic and I kind of knew stuff. But in this industry, and it's not to be cocky,
I kind of knew stuff that I was selling.
Well, I did.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I was like,
I remember those days. Yeah.
But when it comes to real estate, and part of it is because of like the passion and everything like that, I always entrench myself in it to the point where I want to know everything. Like, it's almost an obsession. And then with that knowledge comes confidence. And with that confidence even comes more pleasure, right? So it's like this snowball effect. And I don't do it for the money. I mean, it's great. We're making money. But the fact that I do it out of enjoyment, helping a bunch of people do it, and at the same time making like right now, fortunately, everybody's making a lot of money doing it as well too.
And as your friend, I hate to admit this, but yeah, you're really good at what you do.
Yeah, thank you.
And I guess I'm curious, what's your favorite type of project now? I feel like if I had to guess, for those people who aren't listening, Ruben has a lot of kind of experience in design as well. I feel like that's your favorite, when you get to be involved with the architects who are designing. Even though you don't have like an official design background, I've seen you in my own houses that I've purchased multiple times. You've told us on pre-construction homes that we've bought for our family to move around a kitchen island a certain way, small little things that we would have never imagined to change the whole layout of the house. Is that still your favorite thing, the design component of it?
It definitely is one of the things that.
And is that how you work with all your clients right now? Like you ask to be involved with the architect, or do you ask to get the drawings sent over to you?
We are involved right from, like, if there's a client who's working with us who has intentions of building or buying and renovating, I mean, right from finding the right house that has the right footprint and the right bone structure to do that renovation, or it's the right land to actually buy so that it's worth building on, that it's going to be a solid investment. So from finding the initial property to, working directly with the architects on consulting on the designs of what, because a lot of homeowners, they don't know what they want yet. So you got to share some ideas and then so that they can understand, and then they can make those decisions. Yeah, I really, really want that. But yeah, so it's consulting on the designs, and it goes right to even selecting finishes, even helping them buy furniture.
Yeah, I don't know how you have the patience for that.
So, and to see that from starting from scratch, and then to come into a house after somebody's been living there and seeing it finished, that is one of the things that I enjoy the most, right? It is very time consuming, but it's part of what we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The fact that you're so confident about that for the next 10 years kind of amazes me. So you've really found your sweet spot. Most people don't have that. Most people I find don't know what they want to do exactly for the next 10 years. So you should feel fortunate.
Yeah. I don't want to be doing anything else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then right now, are you, I don't even know how you get your clients. Is it just word of mouth?
Yeah. So
it sounds like you post something on social media. You just, is word of mouth because you keep growing with what you're doing.
So definitely through referrals, through word of mouth, because and then the other thing is, we have a pretty good social media following, whether it be on YouTube, whether it's going to be on Instagram.
Are you still doing those YouTube videos where you walk through different houses explaining, like kind of like a positive critique where you're saying, here's what they did good, here's what they could have
I know who's
on?
not watching my videos.
Yeah, dude, I don't have time. I don't watch anything. So you're still doing those videos?
Yeah. So
just for anyone listening who doesn't know, Ruben is part of it. Ruben is here at Rockstar. So like you would think that we're all in tune with each other, but no, you're doing so much. I can't keep track.
Yeah. So between Austin and I, so Austin's my son, who's also a realtor, who's working with me, and he's got great skills when it comes to like basically editing videos and photos and all that and filming.
Because we tried to hire him away from you.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll we try to capture some of these projects. We'll put them on the content on YouTube so people can follow along, and we're trying to always get better information out there. So because you can talk about concepts, but sometimes you want to see what we're talking about, and that's what we're able to do it through like some of those social media platforms, right, rather than just a podcast.
But before we go further, I just wanted to ask, what about some of your clients and when they talk about vacation properties? Are you hearing things like Florida, up north, out west, Europe, or any of your clients? I know you specifically aren't going to Europe to help people buy properties, but I know you're probably involved in some of those conversations with some of your clients. What are you hearing right now? And has that changed over the last few years?
Yeah. So if it's outside of the country, they'll ask about it. And I'm just like, hey, I'm not your guy. You know what? I kind of try to stay in my lane. There are individuals that are talking about cottages and same thing. I'm like, hey, because there's so many things that are specific to that area and understanding, some of the...
what lake has a rock bottom?
Exactly.
What has,
So I'm like, find an expert in that area. But I will engage, like somebody will reach out and through a consulting engagement, ask us to consult on the designs, because the design is still designed. It doesn't matter where it's located. But yeah, we're not going out there. So, but we do have those clients that are asking about.
Are you hearing it more? The reason I'm asking is because we bought up in Blue Mountain, and I think you know what happened to the prices up there over the last 18 months. I guess it's like everywhere. And I'm just wondering if you're hearing more people talk about different vacation properties.
I am, because again, a lot of these guys are savvy, and they realize, like, if it's going to be like up in Muskoka or Blue Mountain, that they're doing like an Airbnb or just renting it out for a couple weeks. So the cash flow on those properties are pretty decent. So, and then they also have that as a secondary property that they can use for their own personal use, right? So, but that's not something that I'm working on directly, finding them properties like that and understanding those numbers.
Something I've observed about you being as successful as you are in an industry that is pretty cutthroat is that you keep relationships better than anyone I've ever met. Even if somebody what I would consider crosses you in a way, you will never cut ties with that person. You always take the high road. Where does that kind of mindset come from? Is that books you've read, or is that like people that you've been around, or things that you've observed? Because you seem to operate by your own set of principles. And I don't know if you've ever outlined them for yourself or publicly, but do you have an internal set of principles that you live by? And if you do, where has that come from?
Yeah. I think one is, if somebody crosses me or does something where you think that they did it specifically to hurt you or something like that, and I'm like, no, they didn't. They did it because they felt that decision was the best decision for them. And could that mean, look, for example, let's say they listed with somebody else or they bought with somebody else. Well, that doesn't, whatever decision they did could have been that maybe they perceived something. It doesn't necessarily mean that's a fact, right? And I look at it and saying, hey, I'm more concerned about the long-term relationship. And if at the end of the day, if I provide enough value and you see it, you'll work with me. And if you don't, that's okay. And I think what that comes down to is where, like, other people who might get offended by it is that they may have a big ego. I don't have a big ego. At least I don't think so, right? And
it's funny. Some people from the outside will think you have a big ego until they meet you. You don't.
No,
right.
I don't.
Why is the long term more important to you? Why do you say it that way?
Because I've been doing this long enough that I've seen a lot of situations where, somebody made a decision that wasn't in my best interest, right? But at the end of the day, I was still there to help them anyway. And then they realized that, wait a minute, that kept the door open, and then they came back, and I think that relationship was even stronger than if I worked with them in the beginning, right? So now, if somebody does something to disrespect me deliberately or my family, yeah, you cross the line, right? But if somebody did something where they thought it was in their best interest and they weren't doing it deliberately to disrespect me or anything like that.
How did you learn that?
I don't know. I don't think I was, it's hard to say. There
was no mentor.
No, I just don't, part of it is I don't really have a mean bone in my body, I don't think.
No,
right?
you don't.
So, and I really do enjoy helping people. So, and I think if that's kind of what I'm trying to do, then it really doesn't matter what that person does. I'm not going to get upset. Right. Now, there have been clients that I fired. Yeah. Right. Like, I'm like, hey, I'm here to help you. If you don't believe that, and we've been working together this long, I can't change you. All right. So maybe it's best that we go our own ways. All right. And that's the best thing you could do, because you don't want to work with people who don't value you. Right.
Are you still buying coffee from Winners at the checkout stand?
No, I am actually going now to Sobeys.
Really? Is that what you're getting coffee now?
Yeah.
For anyone listening to this, Ruben was on like 2 years ago. We were talking about coffee, and we were talking about where we all buy our coffee beans. And he's like, when I'm at Winners, if I see coffee on just a checkout lane, I'll just grab coffee. And somebody, I think, bought you coffee the next week. They said they had to give for you.
One of the listeners,
because probably that Winners coffee's like already expired, dude, or something. It's not. It's like stale coffee beans or something.
Probably talk about buying like exotic cars. See if somebody sends me an exotic car.
Yeah. Anyway, listen. I just, from watching you here, we get to work together, and I feel very fortunate. You could be doing real estate obviously anywhere, but the fact that we get to do it side by side for me is really kind of special, because although I don't watch your YouTube channel, to get to hang out with friends and work together, yourself and Mike and work with my brother Nick, I feel very fortunate. So I know you could be doing your real estate stuff anywhere, and you have your own business with what you're doing. But to be able to do it alongside you means a lot to me. So it makes my life better. And I know that sounds
come
cheesy.
Up and give you a hug.
No, don't give me a hug. Don't give me a hug. But I know it sounds cheesy, but I just want to say it, man. I really appreciate who you are as a person and what you do. And I'm proud to have your back when people make fun of you for different things, because you're easy to make fun of sometimes.
But you're so right. Like, I look at that we talked about doing what I do, and I said how much I love the industry but there's more to it. Like, I get to work with him, right? I get to work with my best friends, right? So imagine if everybody, like, I wish everybody had a life where they get to go to work with their best friends, doing what they love, and get to work with their family and build something that they can leave behind, some sort of legacy that they can leave behind for their family. So
doesn't mean it's always easy
or
it's a great day.
Oh man, no.
Yeah. Sometimes we both walk by each other and like we don't talk. Yeah.
You could tell when I'm walking by.
Yeah.
When it's a good day.
If you don't come to my door going, buddy, hey buddy, with a big smile on your face with your coffee, then I know, I know it's a bad day.
Yeah. So, but we have more good days than bad days for sure.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for doing this, dude. So
no problem.
I know the website for people to find you is thefurtadogroup.com. On Instagram, it's @thefurtado group.
Correct.
On YouTube, I don't know what it is.
I think it's going to still be the Furtado Group.
We'll put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
But thefurtadogroup.com will have links to your YouTube channel. On Instagram, you guys are still really active on Instagram, I'd imagine.
Yeah, we kind of fell off for a little bit. We picked it back up, so we're going to try to maintain that activity.
Okay, so @thefurtado Group on Instagram, and those are the two places to find you. If anyone listening wants to get a hold of you, correct?
I think we're also on Facebook. Same thing.
The Furtado Group.
Keeps it simple. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks for sharing all this, man. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thanks.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. You can find every new episode of the Your Life, Your Terms show on all the major streaming platforms. So Spotify, iTunes, Google Play. And if you'd like to get free copies of some of the books that we've put together, like these right here, or some of the reports that we've put together, like these right here, you can find all of those at www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's www.rockstarinnercircle.com. That's it for now. Until next time, your life, your terms.